Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome to Gurukul Online Learning Network. Today's subject is Business Organization and Management, Chapter 5, Joint Stock Company. So, today we're going to learn about limitations or the disadvantages of the company and its types, joint stock companies. So, disadvantages of company organizations. We described in the earlier classes what are companies, what are joint stock companies. So, let's dive directly into the disadvantages. We described the advantages previously. So, adherence of too many legal formalities. While establishing a company, unlikely the sole proprietorship or the partnership business, that's not a company, that's a business organization which is very small. But the business organization of company form requires huge amount of governmental pressures, governmental regulations, governmental rules, legal formalities, legal documentation, legal papers, this and that, pros and cons, ins and outs, and everything. So that's adherence of too many legal formalities. Concentration of power in few hands. We described that the general shareholders or the general partners of the company take responsibility in the management sectors, but not in every case. Concentration of power. There are certain people who manages them. They are not the soul of that company. Souls are the directors and the CEOs or the owners of that company. There are very few. The main power is in their hands. So the concentration of power is in few hands, which whatever the upper class decides, the lower ones have to follow. The lower ones are the shareholders and the upper ones are the directors. Whatever the directors decide, want to do, the general ones have to do or has to follow them. Excessive government control. So adherence to too many legal formalities and excessive government control, those two are interrelated, both are the same. Now 1 and 3, excessive governmental control. The government puts loads of pressure of legal rights and formalities, legal documentations, legal this, legal that, and every kinds of pressure there is to put on a company. Number 4, undue speculations in shares of company. Undue speculations of shares in company. What is that? Sometimes a company sells too much of shares. Sometimes it doesn't even have a track. Sometimes it does keep a track. So that can be called an undue speculation, not speculating all the shares properly in the company. That's number 4. Fraudulent management. Fraudulent management. What is that? Managing the frauds. Whatever kinds of frauds or bureaucracy or the democracy that is going inside the company has to be managed by the company organization or the authorities or the people who have power of concentration in their hands, which means the board of directors. They have to take a look at those legal forms. They have to take a look at those disadvantages. They have to look at those troublesome peoples or whatever there may be. Bureaucratic control, which is mainly control of a company. Being in a company, the companies, all the shareholders, whatever they're doing, all the governmental prospects, whatever they're doing, whatever the legal rights are, whatever the documents are, whatever the managers are deciding, whatever the boards of directors are deciding, those together all can be called a bureaucratic control, or other from that it can be a definition of various kinds of prospects or companies. High nepotism. The amount of nepotism in every kinds of company is very, very high, other than small business organization like the sole or the business partnership businesses. It can't be defined what kind of nepotism, but so much, like office politics, one of that. Inflexibility in management. In advantages we learned about flexibility, in disadvantages we're learning about inflexibility. Everything has two sides. If something has good, it has bad. If something is bad, it has some good sides. So that's just like that. Inflexibility in management, when we learned in the previous classes, those were like everyone gets to share the management part, everyone gets to participate in the active organization management, everyone gets to this, everyone gets to that, they can do anything, they can do everything, whatever. But this is also an inflexibility. As the amount it gives flexibility to the company, it gives inflexibility, because most of the time while decision is making or they're having a meeting, it takes days or weeks to come up to a final decision, because every kinds of person is giving different kinds of opinions and matters, whatever they are thinking which is positive for them or influential for the company or good for their own profit. So monopolistic control or exploitation of consumers. What is monopolistic control? Monopolistic control is one person controlling everything. One person has the right to do that and none other. That is called monopoly or monopolistic control. And exploitation of consumers is like exploiting all the consumers, what they are doing, looking deep into their fields, researching with them, spying on them, whatever we can name it. So monopolistic control and exploitation of consumers, those are only tied to the upper level of the directors, the board of the directors, the people who are mainly running the company, who are responsible for the company formation. They are the mainly monopolistic control organization of that company. Social abuses. Social abuses, if a company is going downtrend on its profits or investments or any kinds of social activities, people from the society will abuse that organization or company, facility, institute, whatever it is. It's very common nature in every human being. If you're good, they will praise you. If you're going bad, they will not praise you, they will give you abuses. If you're doing 100 goods, sometimes they will not praise you for that, they will not appreciate that. But if you just do one mistake, they all will taunt you for that, they will all abuse you for that, they will say you are only a disadvantage to the company or the whole society. That's how the nature works basically. So there are two types of company, public and private. What are the concepts? So let's take a look. What is a public limited company? A public limited company is a company that willingly sells its shares to increase its more and more dividend capital, which lets the other 5 publics or the other 5 general people to come inside their company, make decisions, sit and go and sit with them, making decisions financially, having managerial efficiencies with them, thinking or taking their ideas to make the company more efficient, giving them profit, sharing the losses with them, sharing all the internal matters and the secrecy with the company with them. That is called a public limited company. Like, there is no secrecy in a public limited company. If anyone wants to come in, anyone can come in. If anyone wants to get out, anyone can get out. That's a public limited company for you. But what's a private limited company? It is just basically the opposite of what's a public limited company. Private limited companies do not sell shares to anyone and everyone. Sometimes, in some cases, they just do not even sell shares. The number of people or the employees in a private limited company sometimes are fixed, that they will not take more than this amount of owner or this amount of employment opportunities. They have very high secrecy. They do not let other 5 people outside of the company know what is going inside the company, what is going to be done inside the company, what are their prospects, what are their goal, what is their motive to do in the future, how is it from, what are the financial records or conditions of the company. So secrecy is the main thing in a private limited company. This is one of the major difference between a public and a private limited company. So that's what is the concept of public and private limited. So difference between public and private limited. Formation in case of public is very easy. In private, it's not that much of easy. In formation of a public limited company, few of the members of the board of directors and the owners will come together. They will form a capital. They will have some governmental legal formation gone down through, and then they can still sell shares in the market to the general public. They will buy that, and their company will be huge and it will be formed. In case of private limited company, there is strict rules and regulations for governmental conditions, terms and agreements, and legal documentations, and not too much shareholders or none shareholders at all. Sometimes that's how private is conducted. Number of members in a public company can be immense. It can be hundreds and thousands, but in private companies, those are very limited to a certain number. But in public, those are not limited to any number. The amount of shares they're selling, that is the amount of members or the owners they will have in a company. Prospectus. Their prospectus are very much different from the public and the private company. Both of their prospects are different in case of general terms of the market. Transfers of share is the most easiest thing to do in a public company, because those all are the general shareholders. They will take the shares. If they're not willing to stay in the company, they will transfer share to the other existing members of the company, or they will take a third person from the outside, from the public, to sell the shares to or transfer their shares. But in case of private, if someone has a share of a private limited company, they have to go through hundreds of legal documentations to transfer their shares. Sometimes it's not even possible. That amount of share has to be left as a liability to that own company, and that person has to be left out. Number of directors is much more in public than the private. A private does have number of directors. Private, public, both has directors, but public has so much owners, so much members, directors are needed more. But in private, there are not too much members, so directors are needed less. Formation of board directors. Formation of board directors in public is elected by the general shareholders, but in case of private, the board of directors are elected among themselves, among the owners, who will be the director of the board. So annual general meeting, every company has an annual general meeting. There is not too much difference. In public's annual meeting, they will discuss everything and they will release an income statement of their company at the end of every year. But in case of private, sometimes they do, sometimes they do not. They want to keep it a secret. They want people to influence them in other ways or to take into their business in other ways. Those are two different from them. Name of a public limited company can be taken or can be kept after a certain amount of time, or it can be, it just like literally it just hangs out. But in case of private, before even the company starts, you must have a name registered to your company, just like the prospectus. Minimum subscription in a public limited is unlimited, and in private it is limited to a certain number of people. List of members in public companies. So how can we describe the list of members? The list of members is according to the list of shares they're selling, and the directors or the owners, those totally different factors from everything else. The number of shares you're selling is the number of members, or the number of small proportion of owners you're intaking into your company. That's different. In private, there are a certain number, 5 or 10 number of board directors. There are some specific and a very certain particular amount of shareholders in the company. So list of members is very huge in public, and in case of private it's very short. Size. Generally, as the public company sells their shares immensely, their size is very large than that of the private company. In that case, the public companies earn very much more profits, many reputation, public popularity, confidence, mutual trust among everyone, more than the private does. So that is the least disadvantageous part for the public and the private limited companies. So today we learned about the limitations and the disadvantages of the company and its types. If you have any kinds of objections or comments regarding this lesson, please let us know down in the comment box below, and thank you for being with Gurukul. Thank you.